What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
So I'm sitting at my desk one day, and all of a sudden, I get a call from the chief of psychiatry at the Northport, Long Island VA Medical Center. And she says, "Hey, Bruce, you're not going to believe this, but there's a doctor working here treating our veterans, and there's a story that he spent time in prison for poisoning his coworkers." So I look at the phone. It's like, and I look at the calendar. I say, "Is this April 1st? Like, is this an April Fool's Day joke or something?" I said, "You mean to tell me that there's somebody that passed the government background investigation that's working at the Northport VA who spent time for poisoning their coworkers?" And she said, "Yes, Bruce, that's what I'm telling you."
God. This is Dr. Swango?
Yes, that's Dr. Michael Swango, and that's what started it all.
Wow.
You know, before that, I had done every other case but a medical serial killer case, and that was the first one.
So is this like the early 90s?
Yes, and then I started to look in the background of Michael Swango, and it was amazing. Just
what was his
truly
story?
amazing. Well, when Michael Swango was in medical school, he was known as 00 Swango, licensed to kill.
Come on.
This is by his fellow students.
Come on.
Oh, yeah. So the fellow students went to the dean and they said, "Hey, Dean, you know, we don't think this guy, Michael Swango, should be a doctor. You know, we're very suspicious of him. It seems that some patients may have expired unexpectedly. And when we look at the notes and things he writes, we just don't feel good about it."
Whoa. His classmates did
Yes. And the dean said, "What the hell do you know? You guys are only students." "I'm the dean. I think he just needs some more training."
There's a freezing cold take.
So you know what? We'll keep him on the job. We'll keep him here in school for another 6 months. We'll straighten him out. And then he'll graduate and he'll be a great doctor. He'll be a great doctor. So he winds up going to Ohio State University Medical Center for an internship, which is a wonderful hospital. I mean, it's an excellent hospital. And all of a sudden, patients start expiring unexpectedly. Okay?
I wonder why.
Now, this one patient, her name was Cynthia McGee. Cynthia McGee was a student at the university, and she got in a car crash with another student. She's actually improving until she gets a visit from Dr. Swango. Then she expires unexpectedly.
Now, what was she like in the ICU at that point?
She was actually improving. She was actually...
But she was still, like,
yes.
she was at least banged up, like,
no,
pretty bad.
They expected her to improve and to be discharged. So, but Swango doesn't get charged with that murder. You see, the student who hit her with his car, he got charged with vehicular homicide.
Oh, no.
But he didn't kill Cynthia McGee. Cynthia McGee was actually killed by Michael Swango.
Did that guy end up going to prison?
No, and I'll tell you exactly what happened to him.
Okay.
So what happens is that Ohio State starts an internal investigation, but they can't prove that Swango had committed any crimes. They just couldn't prove it. That was an internal investigation. Did they call the police? No, you know, we don't really like to call the police. We don't want to do anything that might get in the newspapers or to harm the reputation of our hospital. So you know what? We're just not going to renew him, and he'll leave and go somewhere else.
And be their problem.
And he won't be our problem anymore.
My God.
So he says, you know what? He says, you know, one of the jobs I really loved was being an EMT, an emergency medical technician, because I loved the excitement of pulling up to an accident and actually seeing bodies all around and working on people. So I'm going to become an EMT for a while.
Wait, and he's a doctor?
Yes.
And he asked to be an EMT?
Yes, and they were happy to have him.
Does that happen?
On very rare occasions. So they were happy to have him, and he's doing a pretty good job. And he gets along with his coworkers, and in fact, one day he invites his coworkers in, and he says, you know, guys, you're such a hard-working group of people. I brought you some donuts. Here's some donuts on me. Enjoy them. And they eat the donuts. And that night, they all get very, very sick.
Oh, my God.
And Swango's calling them up. Tell me your symptoms. Tell me everything exactly that happened to you. Were you throwing up? Did you have diarrhea? Were you sweating? Tell me everything. He calls each one of them up. All right. Well, these EMTs were not stupid. They're not stupid at all, okay? About 2 weeks later, Swango comes in with some iced tea. And he says, hey, guys, you know you work so hard, and I really love you guys, so I made some iced tea for you. Here, take some iced tea. And the EMTs say, oh, thanks, Doc. Just leave it over there. We'll take some later. And they have the iced tea tested, and it's loaded with arsenic, and the donuts actually had arsenic on them, and they call the police, and Swango is arrested and prosecuted and goes to jail for 3 years for poisoning his coworkers. Now, I didn't think that in the United States of America, you could spend 3 years in jail for poisoning your coworkers and come out and be a doctor, but I was wrong.
Wait, he didn't get his medical license revoked for that?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Did they even review it?
No. Nothing happened. They looked at him as an EMT, I guess. Nothing happened. So he comes out, and being a sociopath, such an incredible charm he could put on, such an incredible rap, that he convinced people the following. He says, you know what, guys? I'm an ex-Marine, which he was, and I'm a tough guy. I got in a barroom brawl, and I really hurt somebody, so I got sentenced to jail, but the governor of the state restored my civil rights. Here's a piece of paper from the governor saying my civil rights are restored.
Oh, he forged it.
Yes. And he had such a good line that he eventually was able to work his way back into a hospital on the West Coast.
Now, I'm just doing math in my head. This has got to be near the early 90s when he came on your radar, right? At this time. So there weren't some kind of maybe I'm thinking
this is
wrong.
pre-internet.
Yeah, I know it's pre-internet, but there's not some kind of computer system.
There was no Google. There was no Google back then. Well, here's the thing. In many locations, there's a real shortage of doctors and nurses. Even today, there's a real shortage of doctors and nurses, especially some blonde-haired, blue-eyed ex-Marine doctors and nurses. Well, there's a real shortage of them, all right? So he gets a job on the West Coast, and everything's going well. He's actually doing a good job. He's working in the emergency room. He's doing a good job. And he meets a nurse, and they get engaged, and everything's beautiful. Then all of a sudden, the story comes out that he spent time in prison for poisoning his coworkers.
Now, how did that come out?
I know how it came out. He actually applied for admission into the AMA, and the AMA checked him out. And that's how it came out. And it got into the newspapers. So all of a sudden, his fiance and him, they break up. Things are going terrible for him. He loses his job there. The fiance flies home to Virginia, all right? Her name was Kristen Kinney, just a beautiful, really wonderful, wonderful girl. And she goes back home to mom and dad, and she says, I really love this guy, Michael Swango. I thought he was wonderful. And then I read what happened, but when I was living with him, Mom, I was getting these headaches. I was getting these headaches, but now that I'm home, I feel better. Then all of a sudden the doorbell rings, and it's Mr. Charming, Michael Swango, and he charms his way back into her life. All right. We'll go forward a couple of months, and the next thing you know, of course, the headaches are returning, and she just can't take it anymore, so she takes a gun, she walks to the park, and she blows her brains out.
Oh, my God.
Well, you can't blame Swango for that murder, can you? Well, actually, you can. Because even though the body was cremated, the family saved a lock of her hair, and we had it tested. It was loaded with arsenic. Yes, Swango was even poisoning his own fiancée because everybody was a target of opportunity.
Question on that with arsenic, because I'm not very familiar with dosages or how this stuff works. But, we hear poison, we think it's the layman. We think okay, that's something that can kill you right away if it's not treated. But as I understand it, he could give it in small doses,
That
so
is
people were
correct.
just slowly sick. Would it
Yes.
eventually kill them, though?
It would eventually. You know, arsenic used to be known as widow's powder because, you know, at the turn of the century, if you wanted to get rid of your husband,
Well, arsenic never
that
hurt.
was the way to do it.
You know what? There was a little subplot of that in Boardwalk Empire. I remember that. The one, maybe it was the nurse for the guy was slowly poisoning the old man. I thought it was like rat poison or something, but
Well, look, there's arsenic in medicine. There was arsenic in wallpaper. There's arsenic all over the place. It's all a matter of dosage, you know, and how much you take. Look, the definition of poisoning is too much of anything. You know, you can have too much water
Yes.
and be poisoned, hydropoisoning, all right? So it's really too much of anything. So he had actually poisoned her, all right? Make a long story short, he eventually winds up in my neighborhood at the Northport VA Medical Center. Now, how the hell did he get there? You ask.
a little divine intervention.
This is what happens.
He ran into the Sackman.
Stony Brook University out on Long Island has a teaching arrangement with the VA where they send their doctors to the VA for training and learning, and it's great. It's a great arrangement. VA hospitals have that. In Manhattan, they have it with NYU. It's wonderful. All right. So he goes to Northport, and he's looking for a residency, and guess what subject that residency is going to be, what specialty? It was actually in psychiatry. So that meant he had to go in front of a board of trained psychiatrists and convince each and every one of them that he should be in the program. You know, with that cock and bull story about, you know, being in a barroom brawl and getting his civil rights restored, and they bought it.
And this is after all the newspaper
Yes.
story and everything?
Well, they didn't know about that.
Oh,
They didn't know about it. This is pre-internet. They didn't know about it. They had no idea about it.
was he? So you keep describing him as a charmer, someone who could really talk his way into any situation. I would think, though, that like the board of it's called the Board of Psychiatry. Mm-hmm. I would think, obviously, since they're like psychiatrists, they'd be able to spot that. No.
You would think so, but look, they're not perfect people either.
I guess. Yeah.
You know, you have to remember this. Most of the residents at that time were foreign residents, a lot of Indians, Asians. So here comes this blonde-haired, blue-eyed resident. Boy, they haven't seen one of them in a long time. So I don't know if it was reverse racism or not. I really have no idea, you know. But I think they were happy just to have a blonde-haired, blue-eyed ex-Marine in the pro. After all, he's going to treat veterans, and he's an ex-Marine, and he was an ex-Marine.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.